And I cannot believe that we haven't talked about this on the podcast yet. It's called The Hero's Journey. And if you've ever seen a Disney movie or a superhero movie, or you're a fan of the Avengers or Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or Toy Story or books like A Court of Thorn and Roses, like I am, then you are also a fan of this framework called The Hero's Journey. So let me explain what it is. The hero's journey is what is called a story archetype. And that's just a fancy way to say that there's this outline or this series of steps for any movie or any book that tells the story of a hero and the journey that the hero has to take in order to discover their true self and their true calling. And what they ultimately find, whether it's Luke Skywalker or it's Nemo or it's Frodo, is that when you go on this journey to find yourself, you end up also saving the world. And I love this framework, and it's something that I use in my own life. In fact, my therapist and coach, Ann Davin, she uses it all the time to help me understand where I am in the journey of my own life. When she brings up the hero's journey, what she's doing is she's pointing out, based on the steps of a hero's journey, that I'm just at a point in the struggle that every single hero goes through. And when she does that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And I don't feel so lost. I feel like the challenges that I'm experiencing have a purpose, that they're part of the path that I'm meant to walk down. And so today, you and I are going to walk through some of the steps of the hero's journey and how you can use this story archetype as a framework to learn more about yourself than ever before. Because the hero is within you, whether you believe it or not. Your life is trying to pull the hero out of you. And the only way you find out more about yourself is if you go on this bigger journey. Not necessarily to save the world like the Avengers do, but perhaps to save yourself. And in doing so, you'll ultimately save the world around you. So what exactly is the hero's journey framework? Well, it was created by Professor Joseph Campbell. And he was a brilliant mythologist who spent his life studying the stories of religions and myths of culture around the world. And he had this huge epiphany that there is a common pattern in all of these stories that we love, that there is a narrative that goes way beyond time and culture and the geography of where the story is coming from, that in every single story about a hero, there's the exact same patterns of steps, things that are universal about the human experience. And that's what he called the hero's journey. It's a narrative structure that follows the hero as they embark on an adventure, face challenges and trials, undergo personal growth and transformation, and ultimately return home to their community with newfound wisdom or a valuable new treasure. And it's what you see in every single movie that you love. In fact, when Star Wars came out in 1977, it was unlike anything any of us had ever seen before. The story of Luke Skywalker blew the world away. And here's a very interesting fact that you may not know. Can you guess who George Lucas considered his inspiration and his mentor? That's right, Professor Joseph Campbell. See, the hero's journey isn't just a pattern that happens to pop up in all your favorite movies. The hero's journey is the reason why the movies and stories and myths that you love become popular in the first place. You and I absolutely love the hero's journey because it always begins with striking out from the safety of your home and searching for your true calling and your larger power. And today, you will realize that this is the story of your life too. Because you and I are going to break down the framework of the hero's journey to help you understand exactly where you are right now as you are living it. And by the end of our conversation today, my mission is not only to get you to really embrace the simple truth that yes, just like Luke Skywalker and Milan and Frodo, you are the hero of your own life. And there is a bigger calling for you. But I also am on a mission to make you think about what that calling might be for you. Because the hero's journey isn't just about storytelling or mythology. It's a metaphor for the human experience, for your experience. And it mirrors the journey of discovery and growth that you undertake in your life, whether you realize it or not. It's a guide to understanding change and transformation. And it gives you the insights that you need to overcome any challenge that comes your way. It is the path to reaching your true potential. And we're going to talk about the stages of the hero's journey and how you apply them to your life, both to provide deeper meaning to your past, but also, and this is where it gets real fun, to provide a roadmap for your future. So let's start at the beginning. In Joseph Campbell's research and scholarship, there are 17 levels to the hero's journey. But today, you and I are going to focus on the 4 most important ones: the ordinary world, the call to adventure, crossing the threshold, and the midpoint. And so let's start with the very first phase of the hero's journey, and that's called the ordinary world. And let's think about, kind of some of our heroes and our favorite movies and stories, because when you first meet the hero of a story, where are they? They're living a normal, boring, irritating life, right? I mean, you may not remember this from Star Wars, but when you first met Luke Skywalker, do you remember where he was living? He was living on the desert planet Tatooine, and he has no idea who he really is or what the potential of his life is. He's just living a boring life on some desert planet. He's completely unaware of the enormous world that is out there and his role in it. Same thing with Mulan. She's living in China, and her sole duty, remember this, was to bring honor to her family by getting married. She has no idea who she really is or what the potential of her life is or what lies beyond the little town that she lives in. Or what about Lord of the Rings? Same thing, right? Frodo. Where does he live at the beginning of the movie? Oh my gosh, he's there with his big feet in the beautiful Shire. He has no desire to leave it. He's completely unaware of the world that's out there. He's never left the Shire. Are you kidding? He doesn't know he's the person that's going to save the world. Neither do you. So how does the ordinary world, this first step of the hero's journey, apply to you? Simple. You have no idea who you really are and what the potential for your life is. I mean, how could you? You only know what you know based on the life that you're living right now. Same with me. The life you're living in this tiny little part of the big wide world. And that's okay. That's okay. I hope our conversation today makes you open your eyes a little wider, makes you look around and consider there's an entire world that you have yet to discover. And there is power and bravery inside of you that you have yet to tap into. And let's think about the next part that happens in every movie. This is the call to adventure. It's the moment when ordinary life is suddenly disrupted by the call to something greater. Now, in The Lord of the Rings, you remember when this happened, right? Frodo. He's sitting there in the Shire. He has no intention to leave. Who shows up? Gandalf. And next thing you know, he's hearing all about the One Ring and Mordor and all the world that is about to be destroyed. Holy cow, talk about a call to adventure. Or Mulan. Mulan is told she's not worthy of a husband. Remember that? And so she wants to find a way to make her parents proud. And she thinks, oh, wow, I know how I'm going to make my parents proud. That could be going to war in my dad's place. In Star Wars, Luke discovers a message that's hidden in the droid. Remember that little projected message? Which leads him on the path to becoming a Jedi. Now let's talk about you and step 2 of the hero's journey, the call to adventure. Now, Luke and Frodo, they were both lucky enough to have someone actually give them these calls. But your life probably isn't going to work that way. That said, the call to adventure is all around you right now. And there are 4 things you must know in order to recognize it. So here's the first thing. Number 1, the call to adventure will not likely come from someone else. I mean, a robot isn't going to come and project a message to you. A wizard is not going to show up at your front door and be like, come on now, we got to go save the world. This isn't someone coming to you with your future on a silver platter saying, you're the chosen one. That's not how it works in the real world. It works that way in the movies and we love it. But this call to adventure is something you have to be open to and be willing to see for yourself. And here's one way you can start to open your mind up to this. Ask yourself this question. What is your life trying to tell you? I'm going to ask you that question again. What is your life trying to tell you? If you really sit with that question, you'll notice that your life is trying to nudge you in a certain direction. There's something you can't stop thinking about. There's some sort of sign that keeps showing up. There's something that you've wanted to do, but you haven't done it. And I need you to realize that you've got to be willing to start to look for this call to adventure, because if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss it. Now, the second thing you need to know about the call to adventure in your life is it can come as a very positive signal, or it could be a negative one. And here's an example that you might be able to relate to of a negative thing that represents a call to adventure. So one of my best friends, Jody, she and I have been literally friends since the 4th grade. Well, she has lived in Santa Barbara for years, and all of a sudden her rent started going up. She recently left a job she didn't like, and she has just felt like something's been off about where she lives. And then both of her parents ended up in the hospital at the same time. Talk about a wake-up call. She had this instinct, this pull. I should really move back home to Michigan. I mean, I don't know how much longer my parents are going to be around. I'm so far away. I really feel like I should move back home to Michigan. That right there is her call to adventure. Rent going up, leaving a job you don't like, all of a sudden something changing with her family. That's an example of what I'm talking about. And how much more positive do you feel if you look at that situation and you frame it as a call to adventure? Very different than feeling like life is breaking apart. Let me give you now a positive example of what could be a call to adventure. And this is like a small thing. My husband, Chris, and our daughter, Sawyer, when it's snowing outside and it's the winter months, they go to this mountain nearby and they do what's called skinning up the mountain, which is you take these skis and you put these sticky things on the bottom of them and you basically hike up a mountain, a snow mountain, with your skis on it. And then when you get to the top, you take the sticky things off and now you can ski down. And Chris has organized this whole group of people that meet in the parking lot and they now do it twice a week during the winter. I feel pulled to do it. But I'm scared of it. I'm not in great shape. I'm not as good as they are at this, especially thinking about pulling into a parking lot where Chris has organized this group and there's 30 or 40 people there that do this all the time. But here's the thing. As I think about this, I feel the pull. I could see myself as somebody that gets up super early to do that, as somebody that has that level of adventure, of somebody that's doing something that's that cool. And I'm using the word pulled because that's an example of a call to adventure. For you, you might feel pushed or you might feel pulled. Could be positive, could be negative. Both are a call to adventure. The third thing I want you to be aware of is that it can be big or it can be small. I am so moved by the number of you who listen to this podcast around the world and write to me and say that simply taking on something new or bringing back something that I used to do, that it's made you so happy. It's made a part of you come alive. It's made you tap into something deeper, like taking a painting class or writing every day in your journal again, or just the instinct that you have that you want to make your life a little bit better. These are all examples of small things that are calls to adventure for you. And number 4, and this is super important, it is so easy to refuse it. So easy to refuse it. And I think this is why we identify with characters in our favorite movies who are the reluctant hero? You are the reluctant hero in your own life, just like Luke. I mean, do you remember what happens at the beginning of the movie? He's bending over this robot as he's trying to fix it, and all of a sudden this message pops out, "You are my only hope. You are my only hope." And you remember his response? His response was not like, "Where's the first flight out of here?" His response was, I don't think that I can do this. Like, I hate the Empire, but there's nothing I can do about this right now. I got stuff I need to do on my desert planet. I don't think this is meant for me. Isn't that what you say too? That there's nothing I can do about this right now. See, whenever you find yourself in a place where you feel kind of stuck, or you feel like you have to stay where you are for the betterment of the people around you, even though you don't want to, that's a sign of this tension between the call to adventure and staying where you are. Luke always felt so different from who he actually is. He always had this inner turmoil between who he is on the desert planet and who he knows he's being asked to be. And I think that's so relatable because it is the human experience, right? That you don't know what you're meant for. So you stay stuck in this tension and you never leave the comfort of your ordinary world because you don't know where to set out to. And so I'm going to keep coming back to this question that I asked you just a few minutes ago. What is your life trying to tell you right now? This may be exactly where you are in your life right now. The reluctant hero, resisting the call, refusing to acknowledge that there is something more. Maybe because you're afraid or you're not sure what more is. Well, that tension, that right there is evidence that the call to adventure exists right now in your life. Because whenever you say, "I'm stuck," that's a way for your soul to say, can you answer the call to adventure? Get me out of this neighborhood. Get me off this planet. Get me out of this little village. We got something to do. There is a hero inside you. And ding, 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 ding. When you feel stuck, that hero inside you is trying to rattle the cage and say, wake up. We got stuff to do. And so here's how you are going to use Joseph Campbell's framework, the hero's journey. Start labeling these moments of tension as a call to adventure. That breakup, that heartbreak you feel, guess what that is? Call to adventure. That layoff you didn't see coming, call to adventure. The jealousy that you feel as you watch your friends move forward with their lives, whether they're moving across country or they're going to graduate school or they're moving in with a significant other or moving out for that matter, call to adventure. And if you're like me, I am looking ahead at my life, and Chris and I are going to be empty nesters this fall. Now, I can sit around and worry about what I am going to feel like as an empty nester when Oakley heads off to college, or I can see this as an amazing call to adventure. A whole new journey is about to begin. A journey where I will only discover what's possible by going through it. I mean, how cool is that? To think of changes in your life as an opportunity, to see changes in your life as a moment and the ability to find yourself, to become the hero that you need, to discover some power inside you that you didn't know existed. And by the way, you can only find by going through this journey. And you know what's interesting about the hero's journey is that if you look backwards at your life, especially in moments of challenge, you can see many heroes' journeys. You can see how going through something brought out the hero inside you. It offered up this opportunity for growth and discover some sort of treasure that you didn't realize was there. What's so cool about using this as a framework, because my therapist does this all the time, I'm constantly writing down the notes that she tells me as we're having these conversations, is that you can use this framework moving forward. You can stand where you are right now and say, okay, my life is great, but I'm in an ordinary world, right? There's a call to adventure. And when you open your eyes and you see tension or feeling stuck or you feel the pull or the push and you frame it as a call to adventure, now you're ready for stage 3 in the hero's journey, and that is crossing the threshold. Now, this is the moment where the hero leaves behind the safety of the ordinary world and ventures into the unknown, fully committing to their journey of transformation. Now, in Star Wars, Luke leaves his planet and he goes on this new quest. Mulan, she leaves her home. Remember, in the middle of the night, she even disguised herself as a man to sneak into the army's training camp to take the place of her father in the war. Lord of the Rings, crossing the threshold. Frodo leaves the safety of the Shire. I even remember that moment where they stop and turn to one another and say, "We've never been this far." And then they set out on their journey and cross the threshold. Now, my friend that I mentioned, Jody, she crossed the threshold. She packed up her house in Santa Barbara. She loaded up her car. She got her bulldog into the passenger seat next to her, drove across country, and moved home to Michigan. She's going to live with her parents. And she texted me last night, "I just arrived for my next adventure." She moved back home and she's turning the upstairs of her parents' house into an apartment. Why? Because she felt pulled to take care of them. Now, they never asked her to do that. And I'm sure now that she's crossed the threshold, she's probably going, "Oh my God, what the hell have I done?" And here's the thing. It's not just the physical act of leaving a place. If you say to yourself out loud, "I want something different," that can be its own kind of commitment. That can be its own threshold that you cross. You could submit an application. You could step into the gym for the first time. You could throw out all the alcohol in your house. You could make the doctor's appointment. In fact, just sitting down in a calm and mature way and expressing a boundary about something that needs to change, that's a way that you cross a threshold in a relationship. And yeah, it is hard, as I mentioned, to see the call to adventure, but you want to know what's actually more difficult than recognizing that you're called to do something more? It's actually committing to it. Crossing this threshold is the most powerful step, in my opinion, because it's a huge turning point in the hero's journey. And once you do it, there's no turning back. It's a declaration of intent. It is a bold and courageous act. And this is why you hear me talk about taking the first step or getting started or signing up or saying what you need to say out loud all the time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take the action, because it's bigger than just that first step. If you look at the courage that it takes for you to answer the call to change, to be greater, to do something that scares you, this stage of crossing the threshold is no joke, because you can live for years with that tension, knowing that you're meant for something greater and never do anything about it. And this is the part of the hero's journey where most people fail, because there is no journey until you take this step and you answer the call and you cross the threshold. It's when you commit to yourself and to the journey that you're officially on the journey, not by thinking about it. I mean, think there would be no Star Wars if Luke just stayed on the planet and thought about it. There'd be no Lord of the Rings if Frodo was still just laying around and eating good food in the Shire. There'd be no Mulan if she was like, "Okay, I guess I'm not marriage material. I guess I'll just die single in my parents' house." No, at some point, you have to not only answer the call, but you have to begin it. That's what it means to be on the journey. You and I are going to go on an extraordinary journey together. You're going to learn that you have something in common with some of the most beloved characters in movies and stories and myths. And just like Luke Skywalker, Mulan, Frodo, all of the Avengers, you are being called to a new adventure in your life, and you might not even realize it.